What's going on, everybody? Russell Simon here for Simon Says on the Mark, and somehow, looking at the New York Knicks, all the ridiculousness that seems to happen to them always happens from Monday through Friday, and then by the time we get to Sunday, everything is optimistic and the future is rosy, and it happened obviously with Jeremy Lin when they beat the Mavericks. That was on Sunday, and now this week, after Mike D'Antoni quit and the Knicks were seemingly dead in the water, they've been reinvigorated and they are now 3-0 under interim coach Mike Woodson after a 102-88 victory over Indiana last night, winning both games in a home and away series after demolishing Portland the day that Mike D'Antoni quit as coach. Looking at some of the stats last night, Carmelo Anthony played 29 minutes. He had 16 points. Amari Stoudemire playing much better in the last three games, 31 minutes and 16 points. And again, Jeremy Lin played very well, 19 points, 33 minutes for him. And this win capped off one of the most ridiculous weeks in recent memory for the Knicks. Obviously, they got killed by Philadelphia on Sunday. They looked dead in the water, and then immediately after that came the New York Post report that Carmelo Anthony was disgruntled and either wanted a promise that D'Antoni was going to be fired or he wanted to be traded by the Thursday trade deadline. That obviously happened on Wednesday, and almost immediately after that report came out, another report came out that Mike D'Antoni had quit and he had resigned. Mike Woodson came in as the new coach. Phil Weber and Dan D'Antoni, two Knicks assistants, also quit, and the Knicks were 18-24. They were a complete mess. And even 4 days later, I'm really having trouble kind of determining what I think about everything that happened with Mike D'Antoni. I think he was dead in the water. That Knicks team, I went to the game on Sunday against Philly, and they were just terrible. They had no energy, no defense, and they really were outcoached and outplayed by a Philadelphia team that, while they are in first place in the Atlantic Division, they don't have some of the talent and some of the pieces that this Knicks team has. Andre Iguodala playing very well, but he's no Carmelo Anthony, and on paper, the talent should be there for the Knicks to be successful, and for some reason, they just really never could get it going under D'Antoni. So I think D'Antoni was, obviously going to be fired. I didn't think that Knicks team was going to do anything in the playoffs, but I think what happened to him, even though I think the Knicks are better off for it, was a bit of a disgrace. It is a players' league more than the NFL, more than MLB. You look at Dwight Howard, who's just dominated all the conversation leading up to the trade deadline with what he was doing in Orlando. And his announcement that he was going to stay in Orlando for an extra year, led to parades and happiness in Orlando, but it reinforced the idea that the NBA is a players' league and the players really determine what happens, and that certainly is true in this New York Knicks case. You had a guy, Carmelo Anthony, a guy who on an 18-24 Knicks team, never played defense, rarely hustled, struggled to get back on defense, and the Knicks were really not as good with him on the court as they were with, an undrafted rookie, second-year player from Harvard in Jeremy Lin. And he came in and ordered, basically, that Mike D'Antoni be fired, and what happened is he resigned, but of course he resigned, still getting the rest of his contract from James Dolan. That being said, though, there is room for optimism still with this new Knicks team, if you want to call this a new Knicks team, and they've really gone through a lot of stages this year and a lot of change already. You had the Jeremy Lin era, Linsanity, you had the era when the Knicks were really struggling early in the year, and now you've got another kind of mini phase with Mike Woodson as the coach and the Knicks trying to get things together. And one thing that he had made a point of during his opening press conference and in much of the statements to the fans over the last 4 days is how he was going to run this team through Carmelo Anthony more. And that was something that we did not see under Mike D'Antoni. This Knicks team rarely ran plays around Melo on the offensive end, and that's really why Jeremy Lin was able to come in and be so successful. And it is a real black mark on Mike D'Antoni's record that I think, Jeremy Lin is able to come in, a second-year player, and he's able to run this offense effectively because D'Antoni let him run the offense and ran the plays through him, where he was never able to do that with Carmelo Anthony. And Anthony has been playing much better. He exploded against a terrible Portland team, but he's really found his sea legs in the last 3 games. in a way that he never could under D'Antoni. He's playing much better defense, taking a lot better shots, and there is reason to be optimistic, again, if you can believe it, if you're a Knicks fan going forward. This team is definitely better coached right now. You can even see it. The little things after timeouts, the Knicks are able to execute, and they come in with a game plan. They're playing much better in the third quarter, whereas they really struggled in the third quarter with D'Antoni as coach, and that is something you see against Philly, especially last Sunday, where Philadelphia came in, made adjustments. The game was nearly tied at halftime, and the Knicks really just didn't make any adjustments, it seemed, and they got blown out of the building in the third quarter. But this Knicks team executing better out of timeouts, and they're doing some of the little things better that are very appealing to a team that really struggled under Mike D'Antoni. So far, after 3 games, we've seen J.R. Smith having a much bigger role. He played 30 minutes last night up there with Tyson, Carmelo, and Amari. And Smith, he did come off the bench, but he added 11 points. And Iman Shumpert also had a pretty big role, played about half the game, and added 6 points. But we're seeing a Knicks team right now that has more of a defensive lineup in, and they can play better defense with Iman and Tyson. And once Melo really decides to play defense, which is something that we've seen over the past 3 games, this Knicks team can definitely still get it together. And there is time, believe it or not, for them to really completely change and make a run here in the Eastern Conference. This is a Knicks team right now that is 21-24. They're the 8th seed. Boston, the 7th seed, is 23-21. So they've got a 2.5 game lead over the Knicks for the 7th spot. And then the Knicks are really going to have to try and climb out of the 6th spot to avoid playing Chicago or Miami in the first round. And that's Atlanta. Right now they're the 6th and they're 25-19. And they have a 4.5 game lead over the Knicks right now in the Eastern Conference. So this is a Knicks team that is going to have to make a run. They're 3-0 now under Woodson, and hopefully this streak can continue and we can come back next Sunday with even more positive news about the Knicks. That's all the time we have for today. I'm Russell Simon. Guys, back to you.